Hello everyone, welcome to video 3 of chapter 7. In this video, we will take another example for the distribution problem. This is example 7.12 from the textbook. So we now have the data given in this tabular form, and let's recap. So the column here are destination D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, 5 of them, and the row here are the origin O1, O2, O3, O4. And what's in here is the capacity. Say this would be the capacity to ship from origin 1 to destination 1, and then this one would be from origin 3 to destination 4. And the number here are the what's available in stock in different oranges. So O1, O2, O3, O4 have that many units in stock. And then here for each column, these indicate the demand from the destination. So that will be like destination 5 needs 10 units. Okay, so we will follow the algorithm we summarized last time, and then apply that to this problem and try to find a feasible solution. Okay, so let's go through the initial assignment process. That was step 1. So we go row by row. Let's go through the first row. Okay, let's just take our time and go through it. So from 1 to 1, and the capacity is 5, and destination 1 needs 8 units, and origin 1 has 6 units, so I could put 5 here. It will not violate any of the constraint. And then here it's capacity 0, so nothing. And then from O1 to D3, now I see I already shipped 5 units out of 6, so origin 1 has only 1 unit left, and I need 6 units, so I could ship 1 unit. So once after I've done this, then origin 1 is all shipped, so these will be 0. Okay, that's row 1. Now let's look at row 2. So for destination 1 from origin 2, and this has 4 units as capacity. It has total 9 units, and destination 1 needs 8 units. So I still need 3 units, and which I can ship because it's less than 4 and less than 9. So we put 3 here. Okay, good. Now let's move to destination 2. It needs 5 units, and capacity is 4. So I can ship maximum 4. And let's see if in origin 2, do we still have 4 units? 9 minus 3, I still have 6 units. So I can ship 4 units. Okay, so we put 4 here. So now we know for origin 2, there are only 2 units left because 9 minus 4 minus 3 is 2. So let's look at from O2 to D3, what can we do? And capacity is 4. I have only 2 units left here, and it still needs 5 units. So among these 3 numbers, 2 is the minimum. That's what we can ship, so I put 2 here. So after shipping 2 units, then O2 has nothing. It's all shipped out, so there's nothing here. So row 2 is done. Now let's move to row 3. So here we already shipped 8 units. Demand is met, nothing to do. And now here for D2, we already shipped 4 units. The demand is 5, so we need 1 more unit. Do we have 1 unit in the O3? Yes, we have 6, so we put 1 here. Now let's look at this one from O3 to D3, and capacity is 4. What's still left? Unmet demand is 6 minus 1 minus 2, that's 3. And then what is left in O3 is 6 minus 1, that's 5. So among these 3 numbers, this is the minimum, and that's what we can ship. So after we ship this, all the demands are met, nothing needs to be done here. And then actually here is also the same. The demand is met, nothing here. So when you go to the fourth row, you don't have to check these three. Okay? Okay, that's a side note. And now let's look here from O3 to D4. D4 has 8 units and nothing here, so I could need 8 more units. And capacity is 5. And then what's left in O3 is 6 minus 3 minus 1 is 2. So among those three numbers, 2 is the smallest. And that's what you put here. So once you put 2, then you shipped everything from O3. So nothing's left, so nothing here. Okay, so that's the third row. And now we go to the fourth row. So as we said, these three, the demand's already met. So we can start from here. Here the capacity is 4. And the demand, what is unmet, is 8 minus 2 is 6. And then for the warehouse 4, I have 17 units. So among those three, 4 is the smallest number. So that's what we will ship. So once 4 unit is being shipped, then D4 here still has 2 unit as unmet demand. So we put it down in red to remind ourselves this constraint is not satisfied yet. Okay, now let's look at D5 from O3 to D5. So the capacity is 3 and the unmet demand is 10, and I still have 17 minus 4, 13 units to be shipped. And then the minimum number among those is 3, so that's what you can ship. Once you have done that, then and I see that I still have 7 units, 10 minus 3, unmet demand. And then for row 4, I have shipped 7 units. There's still 10 units here as surplus, so I mark this one as S. Okay, so this is how you go through an initial assignment, and with the marking to help you proceed to the next step. One more thing we could verify is this inequality between the demand and the supply. So this is the demand. If you add all these 5 numbers up, that's the total amount of the demand. And then if you add all these 4 numbers up, that's the total amount of supply. And if you do that, and then you know this sum is less than that by 1. Okay, you can verify that, and that is confirmed in this initial assignment as well. Here the total unmet demand here is 9 units between these two, and the surplus that's left is 17 minus 7, so 10 units supply. So I have actually 1 extra supply here. Okay, so now we have an initial assignment, and we know there are unmet demand, and now we need to make adjustment. Okay, let's look at what we can do. We see that if we look at column 4, there is a unmet demand of 2 units, and let's see what we can do to compensate for that. So let's see when among each of the row, which one can I increase. So this capacity 0, there's nothing I can do here. This has met the capacity, so I have a choice of doing row 1 or row 3. They both have, I could increase 2 units. So let's just try the first row. If I increase this by 2 units, would that eventually come from the 4th row where I have the supply? Let's see. If I increase this by 2 units, that means among here and somewhere I should decrease by 2 units. And then I see this is only 1 unit, is no good, and that's 0 is no good. And then I see this one has 5 units. I could decrease it by 2 units. Now, if I do that, I reduce this to 3 units. Then I need to look down here to see if anywhere I can increase by 2 units. And preferably it could come from row 4 where I have the surplus, then I don't have to further adjust. So let's look at here. Can I increase this by 2 units? Yes, because the capacity is 7 and I'm shipping 0. I could make this 2. Okay, so you see, if I make this adjustment, here I recorded the flow. So in order to go to column C4, column 4, I move to R1. This is the R1 here. And then for this R1, the adjustment comes from C1 here, C1. And then from the C1, the flow further comes from R4, which is here. So which is where you have the surplus. Okay, so you take 2 extra units here and then reduce it here and then increase it here, and then you end up in the column 4. And once you've done that, the unmet demand is all done. So now 0 unit is needed. Okay, so that's one round of adjustment. But then we see that we still have unmet demand in column 5. Okay, so let's see what we can do to adjust for column 5. Let's do a similar thinking. Okay, so here there are two flows indicated here. So let's take a look at that. So I want to increase column 5, and then looking at it, I see I have possibility of doing row 2 and row 3. So let's pick row 2. And row 2 says I can increase by 1 unit at most. So if I increase this by 1 unit, then somewhere here I need to decrease by 1 unit. So I could do either here, here, or here. So let's just try the first to see if it works. So I decrease this by a unit, so this is 2 now. And then that means somewhere down here, and my goal is to go to row 4. Could I increase row 4 1 unit? Oh yes, I have only 2 here. I can increase to 3. Okay, so by this flow I would ship 1 unit through. So 1 unit is taken from O3 and ended up in D5. O4, sorry, ended up in D5. Okay, and that is actually the maximum amount this flow can do, because you see here you can only increase by 1, so only 1 unit. Okay, now let's look at another possibility, because we see that I could also do this row 5 here. I can increase this one. If I increase this one, then I know I could decrease some of these. So I could decrease this one, and then I could end up increase this one, which will be where I have the surplus. So let's look at how many units I can carry in this. So here the maximum I could increase is 7 units. And then here the maximum I can decrease is 1. And here the maximum I can increase is 5. Among these 3 numbers, and this is the smallest one. So I could not decrease this more than 1 unit. So in this path, maximum amount can flow through is 1 unit. So I will do 1 unit here. So this becomes 1, and this becomes 0, and this becomes 1 in this orange color. And then the unmet demand now becomes 5, because I carried total 2 units. Okay? Okay, so these are short passes that we can see just by inspecting. And now the graph gets more complicated. It's a bit more difficult to analyze and just by inspection. Okay, so to find further adjustments, and we now adopt the labeling and marking process. Okay, so now we continue with the label and the mark, and hopefully we can find some flows, further flows here. Okay, let's carry out that process. So it's these things in green that are marked at the side. That's the new part in this step. Okay, so you always start with one with surplus. So this is row 4. Then I go through all of these columns here to see which one I can further bring and demand capacity not met can further increase. Then I see this one, 3 less than 7, so I marked it for. 1 less than 5, and I marked it for. And this is 0, 0, 4, 4, 3, 3, nothing here. Okay, so these two columns are now marked. Now let's look at column 1 to see for column 1 between these 3 and which one of them can be reduced to compensate this increase here. So I see this is already 0, I can't reduce, and I have these two I can reduce. Okay, so I will label this 1, 1 to say that the column 1 can be used for these two rows. And then there's column 2 here, and then among these 3, which one I can reduce? Well, I see this one I can reduce. So I label this by 2. Okay, now I see row 1, row 2 are both labeled. Okay, now let's look at row 1, and now I want to see further from which column I can connect to this row 1. So row 1, okay, so these are the 3 columns that have not been labeled yet so far. So I would need to look at which one I can further increase. Then I see I can increase this one and this one because the capacity is not met. Okay, then here I would label 1, 1 to see that these two columns can be connected to row 1. And then, okay, then there's also this row 2 here. Okay, so row 2, let's look at these among these 3, which one can be further increased. So I see this can increase, not this one, not this one. So I would label a 2 here. Okay. Okay, so now we finished labeling column 3 and column 4. And let's see for which row are they connected. So let's look at column 3. And these 2 rows are already labeled. Can they be connected to row 3? Decrease this number, and we see yes, we can. So we put 3 here to say it's connected to column 3. Okay, next we go to column 4, and can I also decrease this number? Yes, we can do that. So we would label the column 4 here. Okay, now row 3 and is being labeled, connecting to column 3 and column 4. Okay, so finally, now this change in row 3, where can it be connected? In particular, can it be connected to column 5? So let's look at this. And so if these are being changed, can I increase here further for column 5? I see yes, 1 is less than 7. So this will come from row 3. That's what I would mark here, 3. Okay, so now we see we are done with our label and mark. All the columns and the rows are now marked. So in particular, the column 5, where there is the unmet demand, this column now is marked, which means this flow can be carried out and to further transport surplus here eventually into this column. Okay, so let's write out this flow, which is marked here in this purple color. So eventually we want to put things in column 5, so C5. where could it come from? Well, there is a 3 here, so means this will come from R3. Okay, now let's go to R3. That is 3 and the 4. And let's pick a C3. So there's a C3 I picked here. Okay, and then once the C3 is picked as column 3, we'll go look at column 3. Then there's marked 1 and 2. Let's pick a row 1. Okay, and then now let's go to row 1, and then it says it has to come from C1. Then I put C1. Then let's look at C1, and it says it comes from R4. R4. So there is this completed flow that will carry things over. Now let's take a look at the maximum capacity, how many maximum units I can carry through this flow. So what we can do is to go through this flow and see at each connection what is the maximum amount that can be carried. And then look at all these numbers and pick the minimum. Okay, so first let's look at C5. How much would I need to eventually move in there? The total unmet demand, which is 5. So let me write, let's just label here 5 units there. And then this says this can be taken from R3. And R3 is here. And what is the total, the maximum number further I can increase? So 7 minus 1 is 6. So I would write 6 here. Okay. Right. So once R3 is done, and then I know this is coming from column 3. Okay. Column 3 is here. So what's the maximum number I can decrease? It's 3. So let's label that. That's 3. Okay. And then the next one to go is from row 1. R1 is here. So what is the maximum amount I can increase from here is 3, because 4 minus 1 is 3. So let's label that. That's the maximum is 3. All right. Okay, and then the next is column 1, is this one here. So what's the maximum I can decrease here? Well, it's 3, because it has only 3 there. So that's a 3. And then the last one is row 4. Row 4 is here. How much can I increase? So it's 7, and the maximum is 7, and I carry 3. So the total number is I can do is max is 4. So I label there. Okay, so these are the numbers that each link, maximum of what each link can carry. So we have to take the smallest among these, because you cannot carry more than that, otherwise one of the link will not work. So the minimum of these is 3, so that means I can carry 3 units through here. Okay, so let's do that, and let's mark that in. So so starting from column 5, row 3, I increase this by 3 units, so this becomes 4. And then I move to column 3, and I decrease this by 3 units, and I get 0. Then I move to R1, increase this by 3, I get 4. Then I move to column 1, C1 here, and then I decrease this by 3, I get 0. And then I move down to R4 and increase this by 3, and I get 6. Okay, so now I can also go to the demand part and mark that I shipped 3 units here, so the unmet demand now is only 2. So we're still not done. We need to find another flow that will carry the last 2 units. Okay, so this simply means we have to do the label and mark again. So let me just talk through and see how this is done. So that's the row R4 with surplus. Then I look through all of them, which one can I increase? And I find these two. So I label these two on column with 4. Then I'll look at column 1, look at the remaining one, and to see that which of them I can decrease. Then I see only this is positive, so I mark 1 here. Then look at column 2 and look at these, which one I can decrease. Only this one, so I marked 2. Okay, so column 1, column 2 is marked now. Row 2 is also marked. Now let's look at row 2, the remaining part, and to see which one of them I can increase. And then I see that only this one, column 3, none of these. This is met and the capacity is 0. Okay, so for column 3, I will mark 2 to say that's coming from row 2. That's the only one. Okay, so now column 3 is marked. Okay, now let's see further which row can I connect to column 3. And among those unmarked ones, well, basically there's only column 1 actually, right? So can column 1 be decreased? Yes. So I mark the 3 over there. Okay, so row 1 is now marked. Now let's look at the remaining part of row 1. Among these two columns, which one can I increase? Then I see not here. Here I can do. So now I mark column 4 with row 1. I mark the 1 here. Okay, so now this is done. Now let's look at column 4 to see in the remaining one, now actually it's only here, can this one be marked? And okay, so this is bigger than 0, so I actually could decrease this. So I can mark it. So this is now marked with column 4 in this position. Okay, and then finally this now only column 5 is left. And then we would check, can I increase this to connect this to row 3? And I see yes, this is only 4 and I have 7. So I will mark row 3 here. Okay, now we have marked all the rows and the columns. So there is a flow that will take some surplus from row 4 to eventually to column 5. Let's find it. Okay, so here let's go through. So here the flow is indicated, but we can easily go through here and figure out how we get this. So we want to move things to column 5, and column 5 is marked as R3, so it's connected to R3, comes from R3. Then let's look at R3. Then R3 can flow from column 4, so it becomes C4. Now let's look at C4. C4 can come from R1. We have R1. Now let's look at R1. R1 is coming from column 3, so we have C3. Okay, let's look at column 3. Column 3 is coming from R2, so we have R2. Now let's look at R2. It can come from column 1 or column 2. So let's say we picked column 2. I have column 2 here. Then look at column 2, and it comes from R4. That's where we want it, right? So we have an R4. So we still made the choice here. So there are multiple flows. So let's say we picked this one. And now it remains to figure out the maximum amount of unit that can be carried over through this flow. So let's go through that. And we see, okay, so let's go through each part. So C5, how much do I need to flow in here? Well, the unmet demand is 2. So let's put the number 2 here. So I have 2 units to be carried in there. Okay, and then this is coming from R3. R3 is here. So how much can I increase on this R3? Well, 4, 7, I have 3 units I can increase. So let's mark there, 3. Okay, okay, so once this is done, I know the next one comes from column 4, which is here. It's this column 4. So how much can this decrease? The maximum this can decrease is 2, right? Because it has only 2 units. So I mark a 2 there. Okay. Now the next one is R1. So I will move up to R1. How much can I increase here? 2 increase to 4. The maximum one can increase is 2. So I mark 2 here. Okay. All right. And then the next is column 3. So I move to column 3. How much can I decrease here? Here's 4. I can decrease it by 4 maximum. So this is 4. Okay. All right. And then the next is R2. Let's come down to R2. How much can I increase this? Maximum 2 units. Let's mark 2 units. And then the next one, this goes to column 2. I move to column 2. How much can I decrease this at most? Is 4. Let's mark 4 here. And now the next one is R4 is here. How much can I increase this at most? Well, I can increase 4 units. So let's mark it here. Okay, so each step of the flow, the maximum it can go through is being marked, and then look at all these numbers. The minimum is 2. So this flow can carry 2 units over. Okay, and that's what we will do. Okay, so let's mark carried after carrying 2 units, change what will we have. Let's start from here. So 4 is now changed to 6. And then I move over here. Now this is increasing, and now this is decreased by 2 units. I get 0. And go over here, increase this 2 units by 4. Come over here, decrease this 2 units. Now we get 2. Move down here, increase this 2 units. We get 4. And to the left, decrease this 2 units to 2. And come down here, increase this by 2 units. I get 3. And that's done. That's the row 4 where you have surplus. Okay, so once you have done this, then you can also go ahead and mark now the demand. Unmet demand now is reduced to 0. Okay, and in this problem, we would actually still have a surplus of 1 unit in the warehouse, number 4, because the demand is 1 unit less than the supply. Okay, so this means now we have found a feasible solution. This is one feasible solution among possibly many others. Okay, so we can probably clean up a bit and remove all these markings and just record the final number. Let's see. Yeah. So here is the final flow chart where we removed the intermediate steps. So in each of these elements in this table, on the left is the capacity, on the right is the Xij, that is how much actually are you shipping from OI to DJ. Okay, so you can easily verify that the number on the right is not bigger than the one on the left. Somewhere it's equal, but not bigger than. That's a constraint. And you can add up all the amount being shipped, and you can see all the demands are met. 2 plus 3 is 5. 2 plus 4 is 6. 4 plus 4 is 8. This add up is 10. And then you are not taking more than the supply. Okay, 2 plus 4 is 6. Here 2 plus 2 plus 4 plus 1 is 9, and here 0, 0, 0, 6 is 6. Here 6, 3, 4, 3 is actually 16. We'll have 1 unit surplus here. So all the constraints are satisfied. So that's one feasible solution there. Okay, so hope this example explains, and I also explained in more detail of finding out the maximum units that can be carried through a flow that you have discovered. Okay, and I recommend you to go and read through example 7.1.3 in your textbook as another example to solidify your knowledge of this algorithm. So this algorithm is an important algorithm because it's a building block for the main problem, the transportation problem that we will talk about in the next video. We will use this as one of the steps in the solution. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this, and I see you next time.